I went traveling for 100 days straight and posted every single day on Instagram, grew my page over 400k, which I am super thankful for. And behind me is all the pieces of gear that made that possible. Everything from doing brand deals on the road to posting every day, filming, editing on the go. That's basically what enabled it to happen. I refined what I'd recommend a little bit behind there because I did bring some overweight gear, which I would not recommend, but behind me is literally all the secrets to basically give you a super well thought out travel kit for the future. But with that being said, you don't have to buy everything here. Everything will be in the affiliate link below, but just take a few recommendations here. You don't have to spend that much money. And honestly, you could create the content that I create with a lot less gear and just some few pivotal items, but this is just super holistic. Let's get into it. Okay, so let's start with the bag. This carried basically everything. This is the Brevity jumper, I think the XL version. I mean, honestly, it's not the best bag in the world, but it's kind of like low profile. It doesn't look like you're hauling a freaking big production kit to any shoot or any tourist attraction, so it could probably carry a bit more gear, but I'm pretty happy with it. The price is a little bit expensive in my opinion, but if you want something low profile, it's a good recommendation. This is my favorite part, this little tripod clip, and I've repurposed this to clip my FPV drone, so it looks like I'm just a casual and not someone who's about to create a lot of commotion diving buildings. But now moving on to the FPV portion of all my gear. My main quad in this day and age is the Nazgul Evoke. It's a classic drone, got the O3 units on it, flies like a beast. Again, I've always said it's a little bit heavy, but I don't really mind. It's all cool, and I fly the GoPro 11 on this. Honestly, the DJI Action is a lot better in my opinion, but just because I'm a social media addict and I post every single day, I like having the tall sensor to get vertical and horizontal at the same time. Again, the DJI Action, which I also brought on my travels, is a better camera, but for the drone, I'll just whip the GoPro on, is what it is. This is also like a little Telesin magnet clip, which is actually quite handy. You can clip it on, get a POV shot, you can put in your bag, and get all types of unique shots with it. And I would definitely recommend it as well. Not very expensive, Telesin's fairly cheap, which I do appreciate from that. Everything in the description. So my main goggles for FPV drone is the Goggles V2. Classic goggles, work great. They actually have supposedly like lower latency than the newer goggles, which is cool. And I still use the Jumper T Pro. There's a new version of this controller which comes out. Honestly, it's kind of nicer, but this has served me very, very well. Great, portable, good for traveling, and I like the longer sticks here, which gives me lots of accuracy so I can do a lot of crazy drone dives. ND filters for the GoPro, absolute must. Just a disclaimer, I try to keep everything as cheap as possible with the highest quality, so I'd never recommend you overpriced BS gear that again works well if there's a cheap alternative. And these newer ND filters work like a charm. I think they're only like max 50 Australian dollars. Polar Pro, so expensive. These work perfectly fine and I would highly recommend them. Also just have a prop tool. These are very standard. You definitely need these when you're traveling. And funny story, I actually brought this to India and they confiscated it. So make sure if you're going to India, put this in your suitcase. It's not here with me right now, that's okay. I also had ND filters, lost one of those, which is kind of sad, but that camera for underwater videography is amazing. Better than the GoPro. Best underwater camera. Without a case, it can go like 18 meters, so I can freedive now. I can scratch 18 meters barely, but having all that convenience without having to get a new case, all that, I'd highly recommend it. Also, those magnetic release things, super handy. Helped me do a lot of freediving in Bali. Very, very recommended. Now let's move along to cameras, which is, I guess, a bit of a moneymaker. The beautiful Sony ZV-E1. I've been promoting this everywhere because it's my #1 camera, which I use the most. It's just so small and tiny. We got the 35mm lens on it. Honestly, I don't really use this lens. I brought it, didn't really use it much. On the camera right now, Sony 24mm f1.4G Master, that's like my favorite lens. Got some more lenses back there, but ZV-E1, amazing video, amazing low light performance. It's basically the staple, same as the A7S III, same as the FX3. Long story short, if you want to capture stunning videography, which I'd humbly say that I did during my travels, this is an absolute must. It's the cheapest version of those sensors. It's a no-brainer. You'll get great videos if you buy this camera. It's not cheap, but it's definitely worth it, and the cheapest option for basically cinema level quality. Now thankfully, because I'm a little bit spoiled and I've worked with my good friends at Sony, I have an A7C II, which is a beautiful travel camera in itself. I have the 14 1.8, and that's kind of like my weird 2 prime combo these days. I have a 14 1.8 and I have a 24 1.4. I really like this because the wide angle. You really just need some wide angle sometimes when you go to these amazing cityscapes, landscapes. I was in China, captured some amazing skyscrapers. It was so sick. And this is a beautiful lens for astrophotography as well. Basically super versatile to have these two in the bag and very good for vlogging, nice and wide. A7C II. It is beautiful for the photos, it can take amazing videos, and it's also sharper than the ZV-E1 as well. So if there ever is a point where you don't want 4K 60, aka 4K that you can slow down, or you don't want amazing low light performance, this camera will basically tick every single one of your needs. So there were actually a few times that I brought this camera, only this camera, because I knew I was going to be out in the day or I really wanted a nice photo. But there are also times where I just copped it and I was spoiled and I brought both these cameras onto hikes like the Stairway to Heaven. So both of these cameras served a great purpose. This one a little more. At the same time, you really can't go wrong. And honestly, the A7C II is probably a bit more of an all-round camera if you're into photos. Still take a nice photo with this, but this is a beast as well. Maybe A7S4 can merge these two together and get a dream camera of mine. That's the only thing I would replace these with. Now, while we are on the topic of camera and lenses, this is the 70-200 f2.8 G Master Mark II, and this is such an important lens for the streets because you need to be able to snipe and basically stand far away and not disturb people if you want to get those street videography / photography shots. Super useful, focuses lightning fast. It's a very expensive lens, but I think it's well worth it, especially for my needs, and helped me create these cool little like travel reels of different countries, which I definitely could not do without this lens. Now, from lenses, you need filters. These are very important to protect your camera and also just provide ND filter if you're doing videography. The Freewell K2 system is the high quality ND filter that I use. This is one of the only variable ND filters that can block out light when you're wide open at something like f1.4, because even though there's plenty of variable ND filters, they often can't block enough light, even when they're like 9-8 stops when you're wide open during the pure daylight. So this one can do it, so I'd highly recommend. Bit expensive, but it has so many things in one. You can put like a mist filter on top, and you can do all sorts of other cool stuff. You can adapt this. It comes with step-up rings. You can adapt it to different lenses at will, which is very important and basically covers all your bases. With a bit of a price tag, I do think it's worth it. We also have the classic cheap alternative, which is this bad boy. This is basically a cheap ND filter from Amazon. I think it's called the KF Concept or something like that. Honestly, it's not the best ND filter. It doesn't block all the lights, but a key thing is if your video doesn't have a ton of motion, people aren't running around, it's just still slow shots, you can get away with cranking the shutter a little bit. You don't have to stick to the 180-degree rule. No one will be able to tell, especially if there's no motion. If there's lots of motion, cranking the shutter will not look good, but for times where you just want a small, convenient way to store your camera, because that thing is a bit bulky, this is very important. Mist filters are also very important for me. They give you a nice dreamy look and everyone uses them. There's one on right now. This is a broken one, but I go by a bunch that I will link in the description. Basically about 20 to 30 bucks, not very expensive. Don't waste your money on these Tiffany whatever ones. The cheap ones work great from my experience. I've tested a bunch. Don't waste your money, go for a cheap one. It will look beautiful. So while I was traveling and basically being a digital nomad, there were jobs that I had to do, brand deals and so on, and basically audio equipment is so important. That's where the eSIM S1 comes in. This is basically like my favorite mic these days for any type of voiceover, and it works like an absolute charm. What I'm holding is literally all you need to plug into a computer and record voiceovers. You can even connect it to your camera if you like, but I use this exclusively for voiceovers. I used to use an even bigger, bulkier mic, but I just found the audio was at a quality which was very professional. It sounded very good compared to basically talking with crap microphones. And obviously it's not going to sound like your best Rode NTG or whatever these expensive mics are, but it's at a quality which I'm more than happy with. All my professional work, all my voiceovers are recorded with this, and it saves so much space and was so convenient. Highly recommend this microphone. But I also made a conscious effort to try and talk to the camera more on my social media, especially on my Instagram, which is why the Sony eSIM W3 was also extremely vital to my content creation. These are basically wireless mics where you can just plug in and you can talk anywhere in the camera, and you can just basically talk and record a nice reel or whatever you want to do. And these are by far my favorites. I've used DJI mics before, I've used the Rode mics before, but the beauty of this with the Sony system is all you have to do, get this hot shoe thing, plug it into the top of the camera, and you're basically ready to go. Turn these both on, plug it in, you're good. What really annoyed me about the Rode mics is you have to bring that little aux cord, take your time, plug it into the top. It's very fiddly, and open that and plug it here. And if you forget that single aux cord, your audio is literally gone. And that means you have to bring like a full pouch for the DJI mics, and you have to pull one thing out at a time, slowly set things up. Whereas this is bam, take out, plug in, take out, put it here, you're ready to go. I know I may sound very picky of me, but basically every barrier to entry of you making content is a bad one. So this small convenience, already recording in public with a wireless mic is not a fun and exactly exciting thing to do. So using the most convenient option possible is definitely what I recommend. This doesn't have 32 bits, it doesn't have backup tracks, but it just works so easily for the content that I want to make. I'm not standing a mile away to record wireless audio, so these things have never failed on me. Works great, and I don't know what exactly is going on, but it never basically clips. If you put in the right setting, you can scream into the mic, you'll still have good audio, so highly recommend too. The third part of the microphone series is the eSIM M1. So this microphone was super important for any type of vlogging I was doing for YouTube. If I was not trying to stand too far away, didn't want my full body in the camera, you can just plug this to the top of your camera, talk to a shotgun mic, and it would sound beautiful. Even if you stand a little bit further away, you can still speak loudly into it and it will capture it pretty decently, which I really love. And the reason it's not open is because I actually lost this when I was traveling and I literally bought it back again. That's how important this microphone is to me, and those two as well. Obviously, it sounds like I'm pretty spoiled in those options, but I'm taking content creation extremely seriously, covers all my bases. If you don't use a Sony camera, well, you should probably use a DJI mic or something, but look, everyone's using Sony. Sony has the best cameras. These are beautiful. So those three mics were pivotal for me to make money, especially on 100 days of travel, because you don't want to lose money the whole time. Did a bunch of brand deals, which were extremely important, using those mics to do voiceovers, especially on the road. There are plenty of times where I needed a music track to put behind different brand deals. So when you post them, there's no copyright and the client is happy with that. And for that, everyone, if you're any type of content creator, you need some type of subscription service to music. I use Artlist. I've been using them for more than 1 year now. They work like a charm. They have all different types of music which sound great. I've used them on plenty of different YouTube videos. These little cinematic videos that I create all use Artlist videos, and obviously they will be monetized because you pay for the service and you won't get copyright striked. And that also applies to Instagram collaborations. You don't want to make this one mistake. Some people just do a brand deal with a company and then they use an original audio. Original audio sounds beautiful, but copyright ends up taking this audio down, and basically your reel has literally no audio, and that's a terrible look for your clients to be like, oh, you've posted this for 2 weeks, there's no audio, how about you repost this brand deal? You do not want that happening to you. So from my personal experience, it is super important to use a backing track which is non-copyright and which you can get from something like Artlist, because if your audio gets taken down, you're going to have a very, very awkward conversation with the client about why your video has no audio. I've literally had 4 or 5 videos over 10,000 likes that has the audio removed, so it's not always a good idea to use trending music. Use something like Artlist. And on another note, Artlist has amazing sound effects, which I also recommend. Every time I do a little bit of a cinematic edit, you have to have some good sound design. It really adds to the video, so again, really would recommend that. So overall, I've had no issues with Artlist, no copyright issues, been able to do brand deals, no worries. And on that note, Artlist has actually reached out to me to be an ambassador. So if you use my affiliate link, it helps me out, and you also get 2 months for free of Artlist of any subscription type. I personally have this subscription here, which basically allows you to use your work for different types of videos, paid videos as well, and you get music and sound effects. So that's the one I use. So if you need music, go get on it. So moving on to a crucial thing when it comes to traveling and photo and video is how do you store your videos. I personally think the best travel solution is you get a cheap 5TB hard drive like this. You have a bunch of SSDs like this so you can work off them. Basically, you put all your files on the SSD, copy them, back them up to the 5TB hard drive, and you just keep going like that with multiple SSDs, chuck them on here. It's very important to have backups, especially if anything gets stolen. You don't want to lose your memories, which is the most important thing, and that's the most efficient. Obviously not super ideal. You buy a ton of these. It's not cheap, but that's what I would definitely recommend. Or you can just live life very dangerously and just buy SSDs and just hope for the best that nothing goes wrong and nothing gets stolen. Now we are getting to a bit more nice to have items, which I still value very, very highly. This is my MX Master 3S. You might be wondering why the hell am I recommending a mouse, but all these buttons on the side are programmable to any type of shortcuts when you're editing videos. And I edit 10 times faster with a mouse. I'm sure a lot of people do as well. This has a horizontal scroll bar. Honestly, I cannot live without it. I brought it literally everywhere I went, and that's a huge reason why I was able to post every single day, because this mouse helped me edit a lot faster on this tiny screen of my laptop. Speaking of my laptop, it's over there, but I basically use a mid-range M2 MacBook Pro. It works great. You don't need the M2 Max, whatever it's called. It's not even an M3. Even an M1 Pro can probably handle all this content creation itself. Might be a little bit laggy, but with proxies, nothing will happen. I don't even use proxies because these MacBooks do things so well, but even M1 Pro can serve a long way. I'm using M2 Pro, so keep that in mind. Let's rapid fire some basic items. We have this little baby tripod. It's great for when you don't want to break your back and bring a full tripod, which is on the current camera I'm using right now. It's in Manfrotto B3. Manfrotto is debatable. I don't think it's the best these days because their tripod mount is like proprietary. It's not universal to other pieces of gear, so honestly it's quite inconvenient. But that being said, I've just always had these tripods, so like whatever. Need a dust blower. This is absolutely classic. I've had dots on my sensors and it's not good. And just a nice light. You never know when these come handy. This is so cheap as well, just like 20 bucks. Has all these colors as well. It's great when you need some light or you want some extra creativity. I also brought the lovely DJI Pocket 3. This thing is just so convenient and so fun. You can shoot some amazing time lapses, hyperlapses because it's got a gimbal, and you can basically get a gimbal in your pocket when you're feeling lazy. Admittedly, I didn't use it that much, but there were some very few occasions that it did come in very handy. For example, I'm like snowboarding, like I'm not gonna hold my full camera, but I can just hold this going down the mountain. Beautiful. So definitely a bit more of a nice to have, especially this could replace all these other cameras as well, but just depends on what you want to use. I also bought the DJI Mini 4 Pro. Again, you might be thinking, why am I walking around with so many drones? But if I were to pick between this and the FPV drone, I would actually bring this because it's so much more versatile, so much more relaxing to fly, especially when you're by yourself. Like, who knows? You don't want to be in a third world country. You've got goggles on, you may get robbed. Like, this is a lot safer. It's a lot more low profile as well. People won't hear you from a mile away. And if you're doing dodgy droning, this is probably a better idea because it flies quieter, it's nicer to fly, a lot more stress-free. I personally feel like it's very important to bring both. I obviously won't bring both in my backpack at the same time, but it's good to have choice depending on the different scenario and what I'm going to see. And that is basically it. All the gear that I brought during my 100 days of traveling. If I went traveling tomorrow, I'd probably bring this all again. I have a bunch more lenses that I did not bring. I think this is a beautiful range to cover. And so I'll definitely be traveling again. This stuff will go in my backpack, go in my suitcase. Again, it's definitely not cheap to say the least back there, but it serves a very, very important purpose. All these items have paid themselves back, no worries. I'm sure you know yourself what you value the most, and everything will be linked as an affiliate link in the description, so support me, go through those links. I'd really, really appreciate that. Hope you got something from this video, and I'll catch you in the next one.